Okay, we're going to get going. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I just want to let everybody know we are recording. And so if you have a question, just raise your hand, and Denise will run over to you with a microphone so that those that watch this later will be able to hear what the question was and the answer. So today's department update really is kind of twofold. The first thing is we wanted to give you an update as to where we're at with all of the themes that came out of the interviews with HR. So we've put together this list for you. Some of these have been combined because there was some bleed over in certain areas, so we combined them up. And so we're going to start off with that. The city manager and Kristen are here, well, interim city manager and deputy city manager. And so the one thing I want to start off with, we did this a little bit today in management team, but I just want everybody to acknowledge the job that Carly has done, not just as being the interim city manager and holding the fort down for a long period of time, but for us in the police department, she has been nothing but an incredible, supportive person with anything that we've come over there with. She's listened. It always hasn't been a yes, but she's listened through it. She's taken time to think through it and then made decisions. A lot of times she's gone back and talked with either Jeff or Kristen about things and has just been very supportive. And you're going to hear some things today that, you know, I think she showed courage to be able to go ahead and approve before a new city manager came in. So with that, we're going to get started. On the second half of the presentation, one of the things that came out of the themes is where are we going? And so I'm going to do a presentation on what the direction of the department's going to look like after we get through the themes. Okay, so we're going to start with the HR city manager things. We've got one microphone, so Kristen and Carly are going to do the talking on this one. There we go.
So this is really organized into the feedback that Kristen heard from the department as a whole and some of the comments that were throughout that process. So one of them, of course, is bring pay into alignment with other agencies. And as you all know, that's a work in progress and not just something we're checked off. It's something we need to keep up with and make sure that we're prioritizing with everything else that we're doing. So the, mid-year increase that we approved was really to make an effort to be closer to that and to get us at least a head start towards that goal. And as you all know, the comp study will get us a little bit closer to that towards the end of the year as well. And so really for us, that's something that is an ongoing thing that we need to be proactive about, and we completely agree is something we need to, the fact that it's rated number one's not a surprise. Like, we all care about that, and it's something that's really big for us as an organization. And so we just want you to know that we really do have our eye on that and are prioritizing that in our conversations. The 2020 step increase was another thing that had come up in the feedback, and we included that in the mid-year adjustments, as you know, and that's something that every other year HR is going to go through, look at everybody's pay in fire and PD, so that's every other year, and make adjustments based on that equity piece. So if there were raises given or not given compared to other agencies, and making sure that that reflects what it should. So that's going to be part of a regular maintenance of our pay structure moving forward, so that hopefully we won't be in that situation again. Then we have the changing the overtime policy, and I know this is a really big one that comes up a lot. We're working towards figuring out what that looks like. Our initial research into it is that it's about $100,000 more a year to convert to that, which is a lot of money, but doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. It just means that we have to think about what that means and how that fits into everything else. We do think it's worth pushing forward and continuing to work through, because we know it's a really big deal to you all, and we can see the unnecessary angst that it's causing, and something that we can do to really support you all. And so it's something that we're going to be talking to the new city manager, Scott. He starts on Monday, so we're going to be talking to him about some of these things and are going to be moving forward on having those conversations. the approving working out on duty to extend outside the city. So this was something that had come up, that recent policy that was passed was only within Golden, and that was fairly constraining and not super fun always to be at the GCC working out. And so that's something we've changed and has been approved, that the sworn employees can work out at the beginning or the end of their shift, wherever it is. If it's at their house or somewhere outside of Golden, we're going to change that. I know another piece of that is extending that to non-sworn people in the police department, and we're still working through that. The problem with that is just that it has citywide impact, and so just trying to figure out what that looks like and how that fits in. But it's definitely not off the table, and it's something that we're continuing to have conversations about. Providing 40 hours of PTO for new employees as a recruitment strategy is another thing that we're looking at for next year. We know that it's tough when people start a job and start with no time, and then it feels like you never really catch up. So that's something we've been talking a lot about. Do you want to talk now?
I just want to make sure everybody understands that the new policy for working out on duty, Carly has approved you to work out away from the city. You don't have to be in the city anymore, but it will be at either the beginning or the end of your shift. If you're on duty in the middle of the shift and you want to go to Orange Theory in Arvada, that's not on the table. So work with your supervisor on the 2 days you're going to be doing this, for those that have this approved. And you can do your class at home, you can go to Orange Theory, whatever. We just want to make sure it's at the beginning, and then so we don't have to worry about callback or any of that other stuff. You can feel good when you changed out that you can go home and go straight to your class. Okay?
What am I talking about?
We're starting with action items
Okay.
requiring time, additional time
Okay.
consideration.
She gets the good ones and I get the maybes. Just kidding. So in the middle, there are items that they're not closed, but they are going to take more conversation and time. Part of this is, as we've talked about, we're getting a new city manager. Another piece of it is, we, believe it or not, we had these conversations in April. It's September. We still want to move a lot of these things forward, but also know that we might need to have more conversations and things might have changed over time. So the hope is to continue to kind of reassess and look at things broadly. But some of the things that are still being evaluated and we'll probably look at for next year are implementing a longevity pay program, implementing a retention bonus program, looking at if we can change the city contribution to tuition reimbursement. This one, in my mind, makes a lot of sense for the police department because you guys are, I don't think this is a secret, one of the groups that uses it the most, and it's really challenging to try to get any kind of credits or degree or go through any programs with the limit that's on it right now. So as we're having budget conversations, that's something that's under evaluation. Gap insurance for medical coverage for those post-retirement, providing shift differential compensation, and increasing the comp bank maximum to 80. One of the things, too, with these ones that's interesting is it might be some of them, but not all of them. So again, it's part of like which one of these are the most important. You can see that the longevity pay is ranked a lot higher than, say, like increasing the comp bank, things like that. So we are still having conversations on these things, are still being assessed, but don't be surprised too if we look for more feedback as we get to a point, because there are a certain amount of budget dollars. So make sure that we're implementing the things that are the most valuable. And I get to read the red ones too? Cool. All right. And so the ones that are being considered closed at this moment in time are one of the things that came up was reevaluate holiday payout at year end if it is unused. And it says this item has been thoroughly evaluated and the cost to the city was pretty significant. So at this moment in time, I don't think that's something that is going to change. I know it historically happened before I got here, and it was really upsetting. I don't think it's something we're going to be able to change. However, as we've kind of talked about, we are looking at paid time off in general and making sure that all of our programs are the best that they can be. So while that one might not be a yes, we're still working to make sure, like, overall we've got a really competitive time off program for you, and other pieces there. Yes.
The other thing I wanted to say on holiday pay, because I was around for all the conversations with Jason in regards to that, the three of us talked about this. We can't do holiday pay and change the overtime. And so it came down to, because it's a $200,000 hit, so we had to pick one. And I felt like changing overtime was more important than trying to go back and rebattle for something that had already been closed off citywide. And so I chose to focus our attention on the thing that I think is actually potentially something we can get accomplished, which is moving overtime from 80 hours down to 40 hours. So part of that process was just trying to pick which ones are going to be best for the whole.
All right, so the next one is related. So address concerns around perks being taken away. I think one of the biggest things as far as a perk that was taken away was the holiday pay. And I think there was a feeling of, for the past years, it was always something was taken away and not, things given or consideration given to the police department. So the reason that's on here is being closed is not that we don't care, but I mean, there's not really an action item on that. It's like, okay, we hear you and understand and totally get how that feels. So trying to show steps to not take more things away, but actually add things back where we can. Concerns around ability to compete with larger departments. A lot of the conversations around this was related to comp, and hopefully you've heard us say, like, we hear you, we agree, we're looking at it. I don't have like final comp information yet as we're going through this study, but we are, aware of what other departments are paying, looking at all of that and making sure that we're being as competitive as possible. Like, I want us to have the best police officers, I actually think we do, but continue to have that and pay people fairly for what they're doing and competitive in the market. So the fact that it's on here as closed is only, I don't think this is a one-time and done. We've talked about it before. This is going to stay open. It's something that we're going to look at every year and make sure we're being competitive with the pay and that we can compensate everybody fairly. PD, there was the theme of PD needs different things than other departments and wants recognition of that. Sorry, I didn't write these, so that's why if you see me reading them. I think this is a broader one too, but management understands the value each of you bring to the city and strives to provide the best total compensation possible. I think also, and I don't know if you want to talk to this one too, but starting to have conversations, because I think, and we've talked about this in the past, there's like a peanut butter spread and approach. I think there's been a little bit of a philosophy change in that what you guys do is different. I can work remotely at times. A lot of you can't. You get calls in the middle of the night, and I usually don't. And so looking at kind of the difference too between like equal and equitable. So what I will say is, again, it's on here as closed, but I think there has been a philosophy change. I think management team and city leadership has heard you to say, like, we do recognize that your department is different and maybe things don't always have to be 100% the same across the city. Is that what you were going to say? Okay. The FPPA pension versus a 401A retirement plan. People were bringing up, can we have both? Why do we have one versus the other? We'd like to go, back to FPPA potentially. So digging in on this one, the city did a big study before I got here, a few years ago, I will say, I don't know exactly when, and actually looked and evaluated both for the city. There was a task force that looked at it, had conversations and made a decision, which was great. The thing that wasn't great is that none of that was communicated with this group, why that decision was made, and what really the differences were and the pros and cons of each one. one. So we are working internally and with Innovest to provide that information to the group. Not sure it means we need to go back and reopen it and look at it because the information hasn't changed, but want to share the context with the police department on why the decision was made to stay with the 401 versus FPPA. So we have the information, people used it, there was representatives from PD who were on that committee, but it was just potentially a miss that it wasn't then shared. So context is important, and so we will go back and actually share that with you so everyone can understand and know why that decision was made.
I just want to add a couple more thoughts on that one because I was on the board the last time FPPA was considered. It's actually the second time. It was done prior when there was a different board and FPPA was first coming in. It was evaluated then. So both times the city has chosen to stick with the 401. So what I can tell you just very short, in short order is the 401 was better planned than the FPPA. Overall, it was a better plan. And that was across the board with an independent person, a company that came in and assessed both of them and said, you're better off with this process than this. But since I was on the board, my door is open. If you want, we'll get this information out to you. But if you want to have a conversation with me as to why that decision was made, I will more than willing to sit down and share with you the exact thoughts on it. So.
Cool. Two more are topped out employees are frustrated about compensation. Also hear that. It's one of the, I won't say problems with a STEP program is you know what you're getting, but then you get there fast, right? Like let's say it's 5 years and then you're at the top of your range. We're going to continue to look at market and move the ranges year over year. We're also, as part of the comp study, so you guys know, looking at what our comp philosophy and guidelines are for the city. So it's great to say like we're going to have this compensation philosophy and we're going to pay whatever. Like we're going to try to meet market or beat market or lag the market, hopefully not, but whatever it is. But then we're going to have guidelines for managers as far as how that applies. So one of the considerations on there, just so this group knows, is what do we do with topped out employees, right? Like are we going to say like that's good for you, you're at the top of your range, like high five, good job. There's also potential recommendations we could look at that you get, you know, a certain amount of bonus every year. Your base isn't going to go up if you're topped out, but maybe there's a, you know, along with a longevity piece, a longevity bonus or something like that. So again, this is one is on the closed because it's like, yeah, it is frustrating. Like you're at the top. We get it, but know that it's being applied and looked at as part of the broader compensation philosophy and guidelines if we can build in something to our ongoing comp plan to manage that every year. And then the last one is expression of support for PD from city leadership. I can speak for myself. I know Carly will speak for herself and maybe council. Again, this one could be ongoing too, but we hope you know that one, we care, and two, we support you and value all of you. We're going to continue to try to show that by behaviors and actions and saying that. So again, I can speak for myself. I know, you know, if Carly wants to add on to that. And, you know, we have changing leadership and I think changes and we want you guys to know we care and do support you, but again, want to make sure ongoing that that continues.
I guess I obviously agree with everything she said that, you know, we really, really do appreciate you all and want to back that up and show you all, and we hope that we're making some strides towards that, but we know that that's an ongoing thing that we want to keep working on. As far as council is concerned, and obviously I've been working a lot with council these past 6 months in this interim role and having a lot of interaction with them, and all I have heard is extremely positive comments about our police department and how proud they are of you all, and really nice emails and really nice compliments. I literally in 6 months have never heard them say anything but they're really, really proud of our police department and feel really proud to have them for their city. So obviously 6 months isn't forever, and I understand that that's an ongoing thing, and we have to make sure that that stays and that you guys are hearing those comments comments as well, but I really don't have any concerns with their support of you all. Like, that's all I've heard from them. And so I think that that's really important.
Questions for us?
Yeah, questions on the HR management side of the document? You can ask anything. Okay, I'm going to move on to the police department. I've asked Mark, Marcus, and Mike to sit up front because even though these are listed as kind of HR responsibilities and PD responsibilities, there was conversation around the clock on all of these topics. Sometimes it would just be me and Carly talking about it. Sometimes I might be talking to Mark or Marcus about it. Sometimes I'll only be talking to Kristen. Sometimes Kristen and Carly and I were talking about it. So I wanted you guys to see that as we've gone through this, it was really a lot of work for us to try to come up with the answers for and work on the solutions for these. And, you know, for me, I hope you walk out of here today saying more than half of the items were covered today that was originally on this list that we've been able to say we've been able to get some headway on. So moving into increasing department staffing, that was number 4 and number 10. This was a hard one because council just approved 5 new code enforcement officers so we could have a better impact on the creek. And when you add 5 FTEs into the department, that increases benefits substantially and all the comp stuff that goes along with that, plus cars and LPRs and all of that stuff. So it was a big dollar amount. So when we started having the conversations about what's the right number for the police department, it's difficult when our population is 20,000, our square miles is 9, and you look at the call load to go beyond 52 police officers. And the reason is the big IACP comp study that we did in 2017 asked for the hiring of 5 new additional personnel, and all of that personnel was hired. It took several years to get them hired, but all of them ultimately were approved and hired. So when we started sitting down looking at this, we had to come up with some different creative ways. So I challenged Mark and Ryan Beal to go out and look at task forces, because that was one of the things that was brought up on here is, you know, we're kind of locked. We don't have as much opportunity to do different things in our career. And so one of the things we started looking at was, well, could we maybe get 2 positions approved if we had seizure funds coming in? So they did all the research and a lot of research at that. The problem is reaching back to the agencies that do have people out at places like Strikeforce and FIT, it takes sometimes 3 or 4 years for those seizure funds to hit. So we'd be asking for the city to pick up the entire cost on all of those positions ahead of time. So we had to come up with a different strategy. I had a conversation with Carly and Jeff Hansen and Stephanie, and proposed a proposal that Mark and Ryan put together for CMAT. CMAT is the Metro Auto Theft Task Force. And because there's captive money that's put into that, 70% of the salary and all the overtime is covered. So I felt like there was an opportunity for us to try to see if we could get that position. We had the conversation, and Carly deserves all of the credit because she made the decision to put that position into the budget for 2023. Now, it doesn't mean it's done. It's still got to be ratified by and approved through City Council, but she's approved us to add that position. So that's something to look forward to. I would anticipate that Council would approve it, but things can happen, so it's not totally out of the woods. But one of the things that Carly specifically mentioned in the meeting with Finance about this position was that it came up on this list, and that it's another way for us to be able to say that we're trying to address these things. So that's the good news. The other thing I wanted to say is that we did our own internal evaluation, the executive staff, and we came up with the training and recruitment position. That was actually a recommendation from the line to say we think this is something we need. We thought about it. We took a position out of SOU to reevaluate that. So technically we have 2 new positions that we didn't have before that will be filled in January as new opportunities for sworn personnel to be able to do something different in their career. I can tell you that I think it's going to be challenging moving forward to maybe get more spots. Not impossible, but it can be challenging. So just try to understand as we're talking about this broadly, we are an agency of 71, and if this position's approved, 72 full-time employees. There's only so much that an agency like Golden is able to do. We're never going to be Lakewood or Arvada, where we can send 3 people out to fit, and we can send 3 more people out to West Metro, and we can put people in a lot of special assignments. We're limited because we do have a patrol division, and we've already seen how hard SOU is working and the number of calls that they're picking up and going out and assisting. So it's not impossible, but we have to be very smart about how we move forward with these kinds of requests. So again, it's not dead, but 2 big steps forward. Improved training and development of members. I can tell you as we go into the presentation later today, the executive staff came up with 5 leadership expectations, and I'm going to share all of those with you soon. But one of those is people development, and that we're going to be holding supervisors accountable to people development. But it's more than that. And people development means coaching, mentoring, and training. This training and recruitment position is specific to helping address 2 components on this list. One was this, and the other was having another special assignment. But that goes across the board, sworn, non-sworn, etc. We want a person that is going to be identifying what you need, where you want to go in your career, and actively looking for training and improving your career profile as you move forward. So that's going to be the external component and the internal. So we really think this position is going to be significant. And it's Ben Salentine who's in charge of all of that. There has been little to no meddling from the executive staff on the decisions that he's making pertaining to training. I've had maybe 2 hours of conversation with him about my philosophical approach, that we have dropped the ball in this arena, and I want it improved and I want it corrected. And then we have empowered him to make the decisions and move forward. He will be picking and interviewing the candidates that go in. He will select the person who's going to move into this position. That position will report to him, and he has a lot of authority working with the training committee. So if you want impact on that, join the training committee, and they're going to be pushing a lot of this stuff moving forward. So I think that's very, very positive. That was a high on the list, and it's one that I think we've addressed and will continue to address moving forward. What makes us special? I'm going to be doing a presentation on that, so I'm going to hold that one until we get to the presentation. It was number 9 and kind of number 34 on our list. Improved conditions of the building. So I think you've seen a huge improvement. There's a new cleaning company. I have been every week at management team reminding Rod that the group they've hired has been doing an amazing job. But I do want to look out at every one of you, and also those who will be watching this later, and saying there are pieces of our building that you are responsible for too. It can't always be what are you going to do to fix it. We hired a cleaning company, but you're responsible for your desk. You have to be helpful and responsible for your locker room. I actually took a picture of the locker room, the men's locker room, both sides one day. And I was going to share it in the presentation, but I thought it was a negative way of doing it, so I deleted the pictures. But at the end of the day, what it shows is lockers wide open, clothes thrown all over the floor, dirty boots laying there kicked over. But, you know, when I come in every day, I put my stuff in the locker and I close it. But that's not how it goes here. So we have, ultimately, each of us have responsibility in helping keep the building clean too. We can look at the floor underneath the urinal in the men's locker room. That's the responsibility of all the men in the building. And I'm not saying this to be funny, because it's true. We all have a responsibility to help keep our building clean, your space clean. We all need to jump in and take pride in where we work. In the short term, Jody has walked the entire building with our new maintenance facility manager. She's talked to them about the heating and air conditioning and some of the electrical units. We went out and rented a 4th storage facility, and they went and put shelves in it. So next week, Jody will be getting volunteers to help her start hauling the stuff that we don't need sitting around in the building anymore out to the storage facility. So we're working very hard on trying to make improvements to it. I guess the message I want to get across is we all need to help. It's a responsibility of all of us that work in here that'll help keep it clean. Provide more feedback throughout the year. I hope you guys are seeing improvement in this area. We are really trying to get messages out as often as possible about what we're doing. We have talked as an executive staff not to hold on to things, that we want to get the message out. It doesn't always have to come from me. Any of them can send it out. You can see Marcus has been pushing stuff on the efficiency committee. As soon as a decision is made, we're trying to get that information out. A couple of things we wanted to put out. I had this big, huge, long email, and my good friend Kristen, I sent it to her for some advice, and she said, dude, they're going to shut down after about the 4th bullet point because you have too much in here, which was a good point. We need to send them out in smaller pieces, right, so that you can digest what we just said. But I want you to know, too, that I'm not perfect, which is why I go to somebody like Kristen or Carly or Mike or Mark or Marcus and ask for feedback before we send the message out, because we're trying to do the best we can to be very positive and very supportive of everything that you're asking for, and trying to do it, and I think in a very good, sound business way, but prioritize them and get those main things done first, but also get that communicated out. I also want to tell you, I get to the office at 6 o'clock just about every single morning. Sometimes if I have council the night before, I'll pick up kid duty and I won't get in until 8:15, so you won't see me. I'm trying to get to as many briefings as I can, and particularly on Wednesdays because I know they're doubled up. And then Mike's responsible for trying to get to the swing shift briefings, but swing shift, because of the nature of the work, sometimes you guys don't have those briefings. So, but I am here at 6 o'clock in the morning. For the night shift people, you've got me for an hour just about every day of the week. And so I just want to be mindful of that. But also, you can go to any one of these offices, any one of them, including Carly and Kristen. And when Scott gets here, I'm sure it'll be the same thing with him, and discuss anything. Kristen or Carly will come to me with whatever it is, but I won't know who said it, and I won't know the exact context. It will be an issue was brought up. How do we want to work on resolving this? So we want you to know that you have that confidentiality, but trust is earned. And I hope that in the first 5 months of us being in office that we're starting to show you that you can trust us. And we want to continue to build that rapport and that trust and that respect. And so I hope that with a lot of these, you'll give us some time to continue to develop and build that moving forward. Lack of time off. I hear you. We're working on it. We're trying to get people hired. We've talked about PTO and what all that looks like, and holiday pay, and what are some different strategies that we may be able to work through. Hopefully some of those decisions will be made, and we'll come in with a new piece of information that will be like, hey, okay, that will be great. But in the short term, we're down folks, right? We just lost Daniel Dixon. We've got people on sabbatical, we've got people on FMLA, and I know it's hard. All I can say is we're trying. We've approved the SOU team to come out and help, so Trevor's been training and not doing that. I know Ben's come out and covered swing shift. So we hear you, and we're doing our best to try to get that handled for you. But I know it's also a challenge when it's easy for me to sit here and say that, when you're like, yeah, that doesn't change the fact that I can't get a day off because I'm down to minimum staffing. So I appreciate the plight that you're in. Eliminate perceived favoritism on special assignments and promotions. What I will tell you is that perception can be a reality, but in this particular case, at least since I've been here, in my heart of hearts, I believe the perception is wrong. What I can tell you, though, is that even though my perception is that it was wrong, doesn't mean that that can change your opinion. So I've talked to Kristen, and HR has agreed that they will have a representative on every single process we do that is a special assignment or a promotion moving forward. That just happened with the West Metro Drug Task Force. It will happen with the training and recruitment person. As often as possible, it would be Samantha, because she works as closely with us as possible. If it is Samantha, she would most likely be asking questions. If it's Rebecca, she may just be in the room observing. If it's Kristen, she may not want to participate. She may be in the room observing. But there will be a member You may ask, you may want to reserve.
Questions now?
You certainly can, but you may not on a drug task force.
Okay.
So you're going to see, so sometimes they'll be participating and sometimes they're just going to be observing. But we hope that that will be a way of showing you that there's no shenanigans going on. The conversations are being had, they're being had in public, and the right decisions are being made.
Would that be for non-sworn as well?
Every promotion that we have, that will be the case. I want you to know that I don't play favorites. I think, and I've been pretty clear about this, the top candidate gets the job regardless. We just did three special assignments. On one or two of those, I may not have agreed with what the choice was, but I never said a word. The commanders that made the decision said, this is the person who's going in the position for these reasons, and I said, okay. So I hope we can earn your trust in this area. I hope you guys will look at it and say they're making the right decisions. But again, that doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and we got to prove it to you. And that's what we're here to do, is to try and prove it to you. Remote work. I'm a firm believer in remote work, and I'm going to tie this one into the improving of the work relationship, the building environment, all of the things that go with the sworn versus non-sworn. This again comes back, as Kristen said earlier, an equity and equality question. I believe that if you are working in a position that can allow for flexibility, we should be doing that. I will tell you that the executive staff made a decision that impacted investigations. I let it brew for a while. It didn't sit well with me. I went back to them and said, I hope that you guys will consider a change. I threw out a solution that would give them the ability to at least work from home one day a month, which would accommodate both sides. Mark and Mike's need to make sure we had detectives in the building to handle calls, but also maybe the employees' needs to be able to have a little bit of freedom a little bit. I didn't make the decision for them. They thought it through. The two of them made the decision and reinstituted that. Almost every one of our civilian positions has the ability to work from home. But when we start looking at it across the board, and sometimes sworn or non-sworn doesn't feel like things are always fair, well, sworn doesn't get that. Our patrol officers don't get that. Our SOU officers don't get that opportunity unless they're on modified duty. So that's one of the things we can look at and say, well, that's one of the things that non-sworn positions get, because their jobs give them the ability to do it. You don't get the ability to do that if you're working in patrol, right? I mean, somebody's got to be here to take calls for service. So on both of these, I want you to know we hear you, and we are going to be taking these into consideration every single time. When we make decisions, whether it's an HR, city manager, and chief decision, or it's an executive staff decision, we are asking ourselves, how does this look to all of our members, to all of our team members? How is this going to be across the board? Is it equitable or is it equal? That's our commitment, is to try to work through those processes on those, okay? It's not going to be perfect. It's going to take us some time, but we're going to work really hard. Young and experienced staff, these are the ones that we've kind of listed off as closed. Young and inexperienced staff, all I can say is we all start our career at the point of zero, and it takes time for us to build. What this group up here is committed to is always hiring the best candidate, period. And sometimes the best candidate comes with experience, and sometimes they come with no experience, and we got to send them to the academy. But we do that because we want you to be able to work with somebody that you trust, that you can respect, you can build a solid family foundation with, and that's the most important thing. But there may be growing pains. And so with that, sometimes we can get a Chris Fink, who can come to us with 5 years of experience from another agency, or Brian Tate, who had to go back through the academy but has 5 years of experience. And other times, it's going to be like Kumasi, who's 21 years old and has just graduated the police academy. And that's just the way it's going to look for us. So we're working on it. But I look in here, and the vast majority of you are all experienced, and that's where all of us need to step up as role models, as mentors, and help develop those people and bring them forward. Leadership is little talk and no action. Again, I'm putting that on the closed list because we are working diligently. We are committed to proving that that's not the case. We are going to walk the walk and talk the talk. That's our commitment to you. And if we're not doing it, you need to walk into my office and tell me, and we will get it fixed. I'm the first one to admit I'm not perfect. I make lots of mistakes. I speak very passionately about things. We get into sometimes heated debates in our office about things. And sometimes I just have to say, I'm done, and close it off and stop, because it's not the world according to Joe. It is the Golden Police Department, and we will always make the best decision that is in the best interest of all of us. Perfect example of that was approving shorts. These three said no. I said yes.
Hell yeah, where's Phil?
So we're not always going to agree. But that's the point is that, sometimes we're looking at it and saying, well, what's this going to hurt, Phil wants to wear shorts. I think Phil should be able to wear shorts.
Knees for one.
Yeah. So let us continue to prove that to you guys. We're going to work hard on it.
What's a few scabs?
Lack of qualified and willing people that want to step into a leadership role. I know the last time a sergeant's examination came up, I met with just about the majority of people. I might have missed 2 or 3 that were eligible to step into the position, trying to recruit people to step up. I understand a lot of the reasons behind it. We're working on it. We're trying to improve it day by day, policy by policy, step by step, program by program. And we hope that in time, more people are going to look at this and say, I want to be a part of that leadership team and help move the organization forward. So hopefully some of you are sitting in the room right now thinking, I've seen enough and I want to help. Create a welcoming environment for diverse employees. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And then toxic employees. First of all, toxic employees can be very difficult to deal with. First of all, they're very rarely ever being toxic in front of me, where I can walk up to them and talk to them. It's the stuff that's being chattered in the halls or at roll call. And so when we had our first leadership training, we talk about supervisors have to lead. And sometimes the supervisors are the ones that are leading the charge on something that they don't like. We can't have that. The only way we're going to succeed, and I can promise you this from the bottom of my heart, we are going to make mistakes. Not just us, but you too. And when you make a mistake, I will have your back. And I will do the heavy lifting for you. Unless you are willful and wanted and acting way outside the scope of your authority. And then there's nothing I can do. But absent that, mistakes are going to be made, and I will have your back. And I've proven that since I've been here on a number of different cases, that I will have your back, and I will fight for you and the decisions that you made. If we're going to do that, that means we also have to trust and respect in what we want to try to create. And Jody, can you move forward a couple of slides? And I'm just going to start digging right into my... Well, let me before I move into my presentation to wrap up some of these thoughts, is there any questions on anything we've presented so far? Anything that is, you're like, I don't like this, or anything like that? Something you want us to go a little bit further on? Nope. Do you have to go, or do you need...
I have to go. I have dinner with council.
Do you want to say...
Yeah. Sorry, I have to go. I have a lovely city Colorado Municipal League dinner with council that I have to go to, so very exciting. But again, I just want to thank you all. As we said, our new city manager starts on Monday. I'm still the deputy city manager, so I'll still be around and talking with all of you and working on all these things. But thanks for all of you and your support and your hard work during this time that I've been interim too. And I know I just said that, council had a lot of nice things to say, but I really mean that, being in charge of an organization's a lot, and it's because you guys did such a great job, and you always do such a great job, that it really made it something that I could always trust that I know you guys are doing the right thing and working really hard out there, and that means a lot and made it easier to be in that role for 6 months. So thanks for all that you've done.
Okay, I'm going to get it move around because I think better when I'm trying to deliver a message when I'm moving. So everything that I want to talk about right now is about where we're going and what we need to stand for and who we are as an organization. And I'm going to try to keep my passion down because this stuff means a lot to me. And some of you that are in the room have had long conversations with me about many of these things. But this is stuff that's really important. And I can tell you, when I first started talking about it with this group, sometimes the message doesn't come out as good, and they had to reel me back in. So the things that are coming up today start off with an idea, but it was a lot of hard work of sitting down and working through this stuff bit by bit, sometimes word by word, sometimes changing pictures 15 times just to get the right imagery of what we want to try to relate to you. And what I want to tell you is that the executive staff is committed to making this organization the best organization in the nation. We may never get there, but that's what our vision is. That's what we're hoping to achieve. And I can tell you that as a partner from the HR perspective, Kristen has been amazing, because there's not been a thing that I haven't come over there and talked about, maybe a different philosophical approach that we've had in the past or whatever, where she's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Or occasionally, well, your hands are tied on that one, dude. That's just the way it is. But she's open to listening. And so we have an audience. And the first thing, and I want to give Kristen the credit for this, was 4-letter consulting. And so she brought 4-letter consulting in to work with management team, because just like us, our management team is pretty new to the positions and new to working together as a team. And I really liked what they had. So I started contract negotiations with them after Kristen cleared some hurdles for me. And we got them under contract to do a year's worth of development for the leadership staff. Now, the reason we're doing that is because we have 5 sergeants who have less than 3 years of experience as supervisors, 2 new people in commander roles, a new person in a chief's role, and a new people in a deputy chief's role. And we have to gel. If we're going to lead you the right way, we have to come together and be on the exact same page, and hopefully on the same sentence in the same paragraph. And so we have to work through some things. We have to develop some skill sets together to get there. So the first exercise that she took the executive staff through was defining what we expect from our sergeants, from us, from our supervisors. And so we came up, and it took us a while, but we whittled it down. We had a whiteboard filled with all kinds of things, and we whittled it down to 5 expectations. And these are the expectations you should have of every supervisor in this department moving forward. It also means that we're living them. And you can ask them, we've been in conversations now where we have related it back to our expectations. If this has come up, how is that displaying courage? Or how is that developing people? So we're going to start trying to learn how to live these as where we move forward. So Jody, can you take us to the first one? The first one was emotional intelligence. We feel like it's important for us to recognize our emotions, to regulate those emotions, understand ours and your motivations, be able to display empathy, And at the last part of it, understand the social skill environment that goes with it. And those are the 5 basic components of emotional intelligence. But the first thing we recognized was, that's fantastic to put on a board, but does all of our leadership group understand what emotional intelligence means? Has anybody even read up on it? There's so many different models. Are we operating off of the same level of emotional intelligence? I paid more money and have 4-letter come out to train our supervisors. So we broke into in August, and later this week we'll be doing our second half of training. We did 2 small group sessions. So what I'm doing is I've hired these people to work individually with every leader in our department. Individual learning. And then we're doing small group learning, and then we're doing the whole team together. And so we're doing 90 minutes, and then Mike and I are flip-flopping between the groups, and we're learning what emotional intelligence means. So more to come, because we're finishing up our second level of training this month on that. Next one, Jody. Accountability. In the past, there's been question about, do we hold people accountable or not? Does the executive staff hold themselves accountable? Have our supervisors held themselves accountable? What does accountability mean? So in our first session, we did a chair exercise where there are 4 people in the middle and everybody else is in the circle. And we had to pound through all of these. And it was getting heated. Matter of fact, there were people getting warm and wanting to jump back in the circle because they had something to say. We're going to fight through the hard stuff as a command staff, because that's how we're going to come together as a team. And when we do that, we can do a better job of leading. But I believe leadership is top to bottom, bottom to top, and side to side. We have to lead across, we have to lead up, and we have to lead down, which means you have to lead up. We have to lead down and across. And so accountability means, are we sitting in the room and starting with ourselves, looking in the mirror and saying, are you holding yourself accountable? Have we done our job? Did we do what we promised we were going to do? There aren't going to be any more broken promises. There may be a failure, but a failure is an opportunity to learn. And there's a difference. We won't break promises. We might fail. But when we fail, we're going to brush ourselves up. We're going to take it as a learning opportunity. We will hold ourselves accountable, and we're going to move forward. And it's going to take time to develop that, and we're going to expect it of our supervisors. And that has already started. And I'm not going to give exact examples, but I know there are supervisors who have been held accountable, including me. Okay, next one. Leadership is about courage. And this was one of Mark's that he felt very passionate about. And by the time he was done expressing what this meant, we added it in. Because you know what? Leadership takes courage. Our jobs take courage. And so we use the imagery of, a cat looking in the mirror of a lion, because that can be either way, right? That reflection can be either way. We can call this the guardian versus the warrior mentality. Takes courage to do both. Takes courage to wear the wings of St. Michael, and it takes courage to put yourself in harm's way. But we want to make sure we're making the right decision and that we're courageous about it. It also means that we have the courage to hold ourselves accountable and other people accountable. It also means we have the courage to admit when we made a mistake and come right out and said, whew, we messed this one up, we're gonna fix it. That comes down to responsibility, comes down to leading with a heart. It takes courage to lead with a heart. It takes courage to show compassion, to show empathy, to not be afraid, to sit down in a room behind closed door and cry with somebody who needs you to cry with them. And there's lots that goes in with that. But once again, can't expect everybody to operate, so we went out and bought one of the leading books called Dare to Lead, which is all about leading with courage. And all of our supervisors have got a copy of it. And when they're done, they're going in the library so that anybody else wants to check it out, they can check it out and read on what that means. But we want you to hold us accountable to leading with courage. Next slide. People development, we just talked about this. While the person that's going to go into this training and recruitment role has a job duty to develop the people in our organization, to start putting together lesson plans and all of the things that are going on with that, the supervisors in this organization have an obligation to coach, mentor, and train you. But I see Guy Garner sitting up here, who's a corporal, and he's a subject matter expert. And I see my girl, Ms. Cordova over here, who has an expertise in CSI work, and I watch her with all of our new officers, teaching them how to put evidence into the system right. And we got Cody, who is a subject matter expert in arrest control and fire, and we can go on and on and on. I got Annie in the back now, who's ICAT and all kinds of things. We all have an obligation to coach, mentor, and train our young and up-and-coming people in our organization and our experienced ones who may be going about something in a lackadaisical fashion. Say that word 3 times fast. So all of this comes down to we have an obligation, but I also want you to take control of your career and be outspoken about where you want to go with your supervisor, who eventually will clear a path for you to sit down with the training person who is going to go online and find you what we need to do to help you get to where you want to go in your career. We're committed to that. We haven't done it in the past, but we're going to start doing it now. Okay? Next one. This is the one that is the most important to me. And I say this all the time. We are one team. It's not day shift. It's not swing shift, front or back side. It's not the CSIs. It's not SOU. It's not the executive staff. We are one team because we will only succeed if all of us are in this together. And I need us to start using that language when we are holding each other accountable by saying, that's not demonstrating being one team. Now, right now, these things are words, right? On a fancy presentation with lots of pictures. Some of you might be saying it's busy. Some might be saying, I get the exact message. Some might be saying, yeah, but. What I can tell you is that as long as I'm here, we're going to be committed to these things. I had the patches come down in the hallway for a reason. Because when Mike's done working with the committee that is going to rebrand our mission, vision, and values, I'm going to have it painted down the hall. And I know some people don't want that to happen, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because I want you to see it every day. Because when you see it, you start to believe it. And it's repetitive. And all of you will have had an impact on creating it. We've got, again, 4-letter consulting with us to help keep us on the rails. We've got members of the community that are working with us and lots of people inside the department. This is not my mission, vision, and values. It's ours. Why? Because we're one team. And if we put it up and you see it, you're going to believe it. And it's going to impact the way you do business, I promise you. And on that back wall, I'm going to have some nice fancy words up there that are going to have all of these on it that says you can expect your leaders to do the following. Because I want all of us to see it and know that we need to live it too. That's how we get to one team. That's how we create an incredible organization. What makes us different? That was a question, that was a theme that came up. And so I'm weaving what makes us different into where we're going, because it's the same thing. What makes us different is all of you. We bring the it factor. And you've all heard this, right? It's been a fancy word that's been used for a long time. If you don't got it, we try not to hire you. Doesn't mean that every once in a while somebody sneaks through. I mean, hey, I'm living proof, right? I mean, sometimes The riffraff slips through. But the it factor means is it's the way that we do business. You can see it when you're sitting down talking to people. You know pretty early on that person's going to be a good police officer or is going to be sluggo. We're trying not to hire sluggo. We're trying to hire people who look like you, who work as hard as you do, committed to doing this job the way that you are. Next slide. These are the people that make us different. It is not the fact that we were one of the first agencies to allow beards. It is not the fact that we're one of the first agency to allow tattoos, or now that we can wear shorts, or we have cargo pants, or we approve baseball hats and exterior vest covers, that we didn't wait for the law to come in before we bought body-worn cameras, or that we supply your gun, your rifle, and your shotgun, and all your uniform stuff, and we try to rotate. Those are all accoutrements. That is not what makes us special. They are things. There are things that hopefully make your job better. They are things that you hopefully can look at. I just put in the budget $40,000, thanks to Adam, to buy all brand new AR-15s next year. We're going to swap them all out. We just bought an upgraded Taser 7s. $20,000 budget hit that we didn't budget this year. Why did we do it? Because those things matter for you to be able to do your job and do it to the best of your ability. And so we went across the street, talked to finance and the city manager. We got it approved to get it done this year. We signed a 10-year contract. They're committed. We're committed. But those are tools. They're things. They are not what makes us different. You are what makes us different because we're one team. What also makes us different is how we treat people. Because in other law enforcement agencies, some of the police officers in the department don't treat people the way that we treat people. You treat people differently in this city. That's what makes us different. Not accoutrements. My number one commitment to you, my number one theme, while I'm the chief of this organization, is that you will come first. We are going to be an employee-focused and an employee-centric organization. Thanks to Cody and Stephanie and the recognition team, we had our first family barbecue. About 47, 50 people showed up. We played volleyball, cornhole. Nico got destroyed by all the kids with water balloons, and it was fabulous. It's just the beginning. We hope later this year we're going to have a fall event, and that committee is going to be charged with 2 family events every year. I have asked for a $4,000 increase in that line item because you're worth it. We will continue to do the meals. We'll continue to do lots of things. But we're going to be employee-focused and employee-centric. When we make decisions, we are thinking about you as part of our family, not as just people filling a job. When we are looking at how people in this organization may be hurting or needing, we are going to do something. When somebody comes up with a request that may be outside of the box thinking, we're going to sit down and chew on it and figure out a way, if we can, to make it happen. We have a wellness program that has been empowered to make some decisions. Perfect decision is, Mark came to me and said, I would like to have a refrigerator to do fit foods. I said, sure. He empowered Kevin Shive, and we have a deep freeze the size of a cave now in our room. We get fit foods in there, but we can fit human bodies in there too. So we are. Sorry, I feel like I'm preaching a little bit. So every once in a while, I got to try to throw out a funny. So employee wellness is important. Nico's brought in the stretch thing. Mark came to me and said, can we do chair massages? We brought in the dogs to do the puppy thing. We're going to try all kinds of different things.
How come I'm never invited to any of this? You just want me to like sign off on bills, like.
Yeah, we have fun over here.
So that's all part of this police, this idea that we're going to be committed, we're going to communicate, we're going to care, we're going to celebrate. That's where we're going. And it's going to take us time, but we're going to develop that. Number one is you. Let's talk about number two. I wrote the strategic plan for the organization back in 21? Yeah, 21. And in there, knowing that the transition was coming, I wrote the plan out on what I wanted. So while we didn't really know what the direction was, you really did, because it's been in the strategic plan from the very beginning. And that was done. The chief knew it. That was done because this is where we wanted to go with the organization. So I kind of look at it as we've got really kind of just four very simple themes, pillars, bookmarks, whatever you want to call them. I use pillars because it looked cool. But the first thing I want you to know is that we're going to be hard on crime. So when we have crime reduction in there, that means we're hard on crime. That means you arrest bad guys. And you do whatever it takes to arrest a bad guy. Because I can promise you this, there's not a member of our community who doesn't want to feel safe in their home at night, knowing that you are all out there willing to take on harm on their behalf. But at the end of the day, we've got laws that get broken, and there's an expectation that we're going to hold people accountable to that to the best of our ability. So we're going to be hard on crime. Number two, we're going to have traffic safety. But I don't want cops that go out there to a fishing hole and write tickets all day. That's not what I'm looking for. I don't need you in a fishing hole because you feel like you have to come in with 2 tickets or 3 tickets. There will never be a quota. What I want is for you, the patrolman, I want Guy and Dan to focus on the core traffic areas that they can get to in their police bike and knock the socks off of that. Our patrolmen, our SOU team is going to work on that other stuff. Our patrolmen need to be working in school zones, construction zones, and residential neighborhoods. I was asked once, if you do X, you're not going to get people to go out and write tickets. And you know what I say? If you don't think traffic safety isn't part of your job, you need to go find another agency to work for. If you don't think reducing crime is part of your job, you need to find another agency to work for. Because those are 2 of the most fundamental principles to any police officer anywhere in the United States of America. It means you're in the wrong career. Because when you become a police officer, you recognize that those first 2 things, they're cornerstones of what we do as law enforcement agencies, right? We got to help people get to school and to work and all that stuff safely. And people want to feel safe in their homes. They want to see a police car driving through their neighborhood. So I'm not asking you to go out and be a ticket writer. What I'm asking you to do is to sit in a school zone, and if you see a violation, make a traffic stop. And then you get to choose whether you're going to write a ticket or not. That's up to you. I'm never going to take your discretion away. Nobody here is going to take your discretion away. Now, Marcus is going to walk up to you, and he's going to be like, hey, I was out writing 9 tickets today. How many did you get? Right, Marcus? But I think what he's trying to show you is that that task isn't too small for him. So he's going to come out and do it too. And Mark is showing you, and by the way, this has been strategic with the executive staff, that we want, Mark's written a whole lot of tickets, that it is okay for our commanders to be out working the street and doing some of this stuff, and they've been doing it. So we're trying to show you that we're going to be there. We're going to be a partner with you in all of these things. So the third one is community engagement. That doesn't mean advanced problem solving. It doesn't mean using the Sarah model. What it means is when Mark's team and Cody send out a block party and you don't got nothing going on, park your car, get out and walk and talk for 5 minutes. If you know we've got movie in the park, call out on public relations. Just talk to people for 5 or 10 minutes. Very easy thing to do, to engage with people in the community. If you're driving by and you see a lemonade stand, you don't got to buy the lemonade. I certainly wouldn't buy any, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't stop off and talk to them. Or if you see them throwing a football, throw the football. Community engagement is about how we can find ways to sit down and just interact. Close down any barriers that may be there. Now the last one. Equity-based policing. This really has two components. It's evidence-based policing and it's equity-based policing. And both of these were in the strategic plan. And so when we start talking about the word equity and we throw out the word equity, the first thing that I know is happening in the room is flashbacks to 2020. Am I right? Flashbacks to 2020. Tough year. 21 wasn't that much better. And we can think about George Floyd and all of these scenarios that happened and all the ones that happened before that, right? But when we look at and you boil all of that stuff off, regardless of what was being said in the media with defund the police and police reform, all of that stuff came down to two things that society was really asking for from police officers. And it was a philosophical change in the way we do business. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and going, geez, you know, how do you even implement something like that? Evidence-based policing was pretty easy, right? So a company came out and said, we've implemented a evidence-based discipline and internal affairs system, policies and all that. So I went to the class for 4 years. I had just rewritten all of those policies, but we hadn't published them yet. Had a lot of help from Denise Maynard and some other people that kind of looked into it. But then there was a transition. I went back, went to that class, came back, made some additional changes based off what we got from that class, gave it to Ben. Him and Mike went over it, made some more changes, and we put it out. So that's the first real set of policies that we can say we now have an evidence-based policy. But in all reality, it wasn't the first. The first was our response to sexual assault and domestic violence cases and eliminating bias in those kinds of investigations, because we did a 2-year project with PERF. And before that, we had done procedural justice training. And before that, we had looked at the President's 21st Century on Policing and Law Enforcement. I can't remember what the title is right now. So we've been kind of putting some of these things in place. So I'm like, okay, evidence-based policing is going to be easy for us because we already have incredible policies. So let's get back to this word. What I hope today that everybody in this room and those who come back and watch this is that they understand that this is just a word. But words have meaning. Everything I'm saying today has meaning. When you look at what this word means, it comes down to 6 basic things. You could put some more in there, but we've got it down to 6 basic things. Dignity, respect, empathy, compassion, fairness, impartiality. Do you not live those core words on a daily basis when we do our job? Because I got 1,000 examples. I'm going to share one today that Christian Ferris said I could share. This is an example of how we already do business. Because I'm here to tell you, you already do this, just got a different word. Christian made a traffic stop. Have no clue if it was a person of color or what the circumstances were. But Christian could tell that this person wasn't talkative and looked angry. And Christian asked him a simple question. Why are you angry? Or words to that effect. And the person said, I don't like cops. You know what Christian's response was? I hope this contact will change your opinion of that. That's equity-based policing. We already do it. And we got 1,000 examples of those. We sat down in our room. We whittled off a whole series of them. Talked about one where an officer contacted a vehicle. The lady had a warrant for arrest. There were 3 kids in the car. And the officer knew that if I arrest this person for this simple warrant, I'm going to have to put these kids in social services. The car that she's using to get to her job is now going to be impounded. And what does that solve? So we sat down and made a decision. Hey, ma'am, you got a warrant for your arrest. You need to contact this agency. You better get it taken care of because not every officer is going to treat you the way that I just did. That's equity-based policing. Everything that you already do in this organization fits empathy, compassion, dignity, respect, fairness, and impartiality. It's how you already police. It's just a different word. It's a different way for us to look at it. And this is realistically what society has asked for from law enforcement. They want evidence-based procedures, and they just want to know their police department is thinking through equity-based strategies. I am not asking you, we are not asking you to do one thing different in how you go about doing your job. Not one thing. I want you to continue to police just the way you are. I am going to ask that we go on a bit of a journey together. And that journey is that you be open to the idea of thinking about how you explain how you do your job differently, using different language. To not be afraid of that word. To be proud when somebody says, what makes you different? That you get to say, not only are we an employee-centric, employee-driven organization, but we do policing based on equity-based methodologies. Because all we're going to do is bring it from the subconscious, what you're already doing. This was Mark's comment is our guys are already doing this. When I'm ranting and raving, he's like, all you're asking them to do is bring it from the subconscious to the conscious. To use some different language. To not be afraid of being able to say, yeah, we look at all factors. I'm not asking you to change your discretion. I'm not asking you to not decide when and when you will not arrest somebody. We're not changing any of that. All we're going to do is provide some new training, some new context that might, in some way, change the way you go about policing. So let me give you an example. I'm going to go back to a traffic stop. And every person I interview, I go through about a 20 to 30-minute discussion about equity-based policing with them. But this is the first time you've gotten it, so 4 or 5 people have had this with me. And I haven't rolled it out because, to be quite honest with you, I was a little scared. I was a little scared to use that word. Shouldn't say a little. I was a lot scared. I'm not as much scared about how you would react to the word, but what the word means after what we've come through and how that might impact the sanctity of our organization. Because those years were difficult. But I want you to think about this set of circumstances, and this is going to be my kind of final piece on equity-based policing. You're making a traffic stop. You're a police officer. Sorry, non-sworn, I'm going to use this example that's very easy for everybody to follow. All of us in this room know that we train ourselves to do a traffic stop in one basic way, right? You're trained from the academy. You know, you position your car in a certain way. You call it out on a radio in a certain way. You got it canted off. You get out. You're behind the V. You approach the vehicle. You check the trunk. You're looking in the back. You're watching the person's hands. You're looking for weapons inside the car. They roll it down, and we go through our same rigmarole every day, right? Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Officer Harvey with the Golden Police Department. The reason, do you know why I stopped you today? They tell us the reason. Need to see your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. Please stay in the car. I'll be right back. We're robots. It's the same thing we do every time. We've been trained to make sure we're safe, treat people equally. But do we treat people equally when we write tickets? Don't be afraid. Do we treat people equally when we write tickets? How many people in here have given a ticket to 100% of the people they've contacted? And then how many people in here have used discretion when they've decided to make a traffic stop? That's the difference between equity and equal. Equal means you either always write or you don't write. Or everybody who's under 10 miles an hour gets a break and everybody who's at 15 miles an hour gets a ticket because you've set the standards. Equity means you use some other approach when you're making your decisions. And there are lots of things that impact the way you think about that traffic stop. Now I want to add in a different set of circumstances. You are on 6th Avenue and it is 8 o'clock at night and it is dusk because it's the middle of the summer. You clock a car, the car is speeding. Do you know who's driving that car when it goes by you at 65 miles an hour? Do you know who's driving that car? No way, right? So you make your traffic stop and you're going through your exact procedure. But inside that traffic stop is a person who can fit any single diversity, racial characteristic you can think of. Whether they're Muslim, whether they practice Judaism, whether they're gay, whether they're lesbian, transgender, African American, Hispanic, whatever you are thinking about right now, have a picture of somebody who looks different than you sitting in behind the wheel of a car. Could be male, could be female, all of those things. And now let's say for an instant that this person came from a city very different than the city of Golden. So let's say it's Compton. And every time this person has been contacted by the police, for whatever the reasons are, we won't know, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. But for them, it has set an imprint in their mind of what this contact's going to look like, right? So let's say that in that particular person, every contact has either resulted in a search or an arrest, leaving them feeling some way that they weren't treated right. Like the case that Kristen had. Christian changed the outlook of that particular contact. So you walk up and this person, they're thinking something very different. They don't know who you are. They're not thinking about this. They're thinking about what this represents. It's the profession, because they're going to superimpose whatever their previous experiences have been onto you. And you now represent every other officer they've come into contact. But we have an opportunity, like Christian just expressed, to say, I hope I can change your outlook. Doesn't mean he doesn't write a ticket, doesn't mean he does write a ticket. It just means that we need to acknowledge and understand that that person's real life experience around this contact could look and feel very different than ours, because for us, it's about doing our job. It's about going up there and doing our job to the best of our ability. There's going to be a lot more coming down with this. We're going to talk about it. The biggest takeaway today is you're not changing much. It's going to be a little bit of language down the road because you already live this. Every one of you do this to a T every single day. And so at the end, when we started talking about this, we were like, what's going to make us different? Being able to say we do this, that's going to make us way different. And I can promise you this. Today, I got the Police Chief magazine through the IACP. And here I thought we were going to be doing something cool. These are 5 articles out of Police Chief magazine. Anybody in here read Police Chief magazine? Okay, it's the same as Police One and all that stuff. It's just for chiefs. Fostering an inclusive working environment. Did we talk about that today? Fostering an inclusive working environment. A vision for police reform. This is all about what we're talking about there. Accountability and inclusiveness in policing, community engagement. Finding equity, inclusion, and diversity in policing. Focus on officer wellness, improving officer health and safety with data. Everything that we talked about today, PhDs and chiefs from huge agencies and stuff, just wrote articles in Police Chief magazine that just came out today. And so I printed them just to read the titles off to you. So we're not alone. This is going to be going across the United States, and we can be at the forefront of it. And we're not asking you to do much because we already do it. And why can it be done here? Because there's only 71 of us. And we've already hired incredible people. So you should be proud of the fact that you have been doing this, which is probably why 2020 might have been so difficult for us, because we're like, why are we getting painted with the same brush as everybody else when we don't ever do that stuff here? So I've gone on about that enough. If you guys want to talk to me more about it, my door's open. You can contact anybody that's up here where they'll talk to you about it. I really hope that you walk out of here thinking this is going to be a good thing, because I think it will be. And I think ultimately it's something you can be very proud of, because it's something you've already inherently done throughout your career. Can you give us the next one? So, finishing up with that last piece and bringing it into this, these are the things that makes us different. These are the reasons why you're already doing equity-based policing, because you're professional, because you're impartial, because you treat people fairly, because we are resilient. We got through these difficult times, because we are highly trained, because you care about people. You care about the way you do your job. You want people to know that the City of Golden's not like other agencies, that we are different in our approach. But most of the time, it's because you're doing the right thing for the right reasons. I don't know what the outcome of Christian's traffic stop was, or whether it was a ticket or not, but I know this: he took the opportunity to change that person's outlook on policing, regardless of whether they gave me a ticket or not, because he was doing the right job, the right thing for the right reasons, because he did care. All of those things we just talked about. So how can we get better? Keep clicking them, Jody, till they all pop up. All we're talking about is slight enhancements, improvements, reshaping, embracing, continuing to learn, being willing to share our story. And it all starts with our brand identity. And that's what we're working on right now. That's where we're going. None of this stuff is going to be done overnight. We are going to be very cautious about how we move this forward. We will bring in people to do some training with us and kind of walk through it. It'll probably start at the executive level and then go down to the supervisors and then work it out. So don't worry, this stuff isn't coming to a theater near you tomorrow. This is going to be down the road. We got to come together as a team first. We got to get the leadership trained, and then we'll start attacking some of this other stuff. But I wanted, because the question was asked where we're going, I wanted you to talk and hear a little bit from me about what this means. I am open to discussion about this. If you want to come in and have some one-on-one time with me about it, I'm more than willing to elaborate a little bit more on what it means and kind of what it looks like. But that's it. That's the last slide, right? I think that's the last slide. There we go. So what questions do you have? Is anybody ready to start, like, walking out the door and resigning? I hope not. Bueller? Any questions? Just like the last time.
It's a lot to digest.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You guys, we appreciate it.